welcome once again to Leader Talk, the CNN-IBN special where we discuss leadership mantras with icons from the world of business and the world of sports. Joining us now, two special people. One of India's most successful test captains, Sourav Ganguly, the Prince of Kolkata, and Sanjiv Goenka, chairman of the RP Sanjiv Goenka Group. Appreciate both of you joining us on Leader Talk. I'm going to start with a proposition that leaders are born and they're not made. Many believe that Sourav Ganguly was a born leader, that you enjoyed the idea of being Indian cricket captain.
I think it boils down to the results also. You know, anybody who's appointed captain for the first time for India will obviously like it because it's a huge honor. You're captain of India, you're leading a team, a cricket team which is so widely followed. But when the results start going against you, then the pressure starts mounting on you because you're answerable. You know, you walk on the streets, people ask you why you're not winning. You come back home, people at home ask you what's happening, why aren't you winning? So it just mounts on it, on the individual. If you handle it, you survive for a long period. If you don't handle it, somebody else takes it over. So captaincy is a thing which with time it gets difficult. It gets harder and harder on the person.
It gets harder and harder on a person. In a way, Sanjeev, you're also, one would say, a born leader. You are a scion of a family that has been in business for more than 2 centuries. And it was almost inevitable that you would take over a part of the family business at some stage. Do you believe that in that sense, there is this dynastical principle that exists in business, where right from a young age, you were told that this is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life?
To an extent, yes. You knew that this is what you were going to do. But I think whether you succeed or not is not because of where you are born. It is because of you, because of your principles, because of your ability to motivate, because of your learnings, because of your experience, because of your own vision. You involve people, but the thinking, the planning, the strategizing is individual.
So are leaders born in that sense?
I think leaders are born. And I think some people are born to lead, and some people may be born in leadership positions, but do not eventually land up leading.
That's interesting. I'm just wondering, one of the things which makes a leader is adversity. As you said, tough times, the pressure. You know, you took over the Indian captaincy at a tough time. The match-fixing allegations had stormed Indian cricket. Did it make you a leader, the fact that you took over the leadership at a time when Indian cricket was almost at an all-time low? Did that make it easier for you or tougher for you?
I was too young at that stage to think about all this. I was just too happy to captain India. And the next thing was to give results because I wanted to win. Just like when I played as a player, I wanted to succeed. And when I became a captain, I wanted to win. So I kept it pretty simple and I never thought what's happened at the back, never tried to find out, because when all these match fixing issues cropped up, I got to hear the stories. I was surprised because during that period, I didn't even realize that these things were happening. And when I came as captain, I didn't worry about all these things.
What was the thing you told the players at the time, in the background of this, when you took over as captain, with this match-fixing scandal in the background? Was there a message you sent out to the team?
No, I didn't mention these things at all. The first time I met the team, I still remember in Cochin, when I met for the first time, for the first one day, I didn't even talk about it. My goal was simple, that we have to be a good team. We have to be a team which wins cricket matches. And then we'll see how it goes. So all my efforts were in trying to build a team which will win. I identified individuals who were good enough to take me to that point of winning cricket matches, and more importantly overseas. So I didn't address that issue, and during the course of this my period as captain, the people whose names came up in the forefront were moved aside. So it became easier for me. I didn't have to deal with it because the board dealt with it.
You know, that's interesting because adversity or challenges, you know, let's put it this way, the RPG group was an old traditional company. Then you come in, that takes a sort of family split, amicable, a couple of years ago. And obviously the pressure then was on you to perform, to show that even after the company splits apart or the group splits apart, you can build a company modeled in your own image. Was that the turning point in a sense for you in the corporate world?
It was. there was a pressure to perform because you inherit a legacy and people have expectations from you and you want to match or surpass those expectations. Secondly, you were always known as a family who did business together.
Or R.P. Goenka's son.
Or R.P. Goenka's son. And I think at some stage, every person wants to be known in his own right. So it was about changing the culture, it was about bringing in a transformation, it was about bringing in a process where people believed they could excel. It was about not accepting mediocrity. It was about introducing accountability. It was about actually telling people if you've got budgets, you're not delivering to them successively, then you go out.
But that's not easy in a traditional,
in a
traditional Kolkata-based company to suddenly change the world. You bring in the McKinseys of the world, restructure companies. There must have been resistance.
Huge resistance, including from my senior CEOs. And so one day they actually collectively sort of walked into my office and said, "You're behaving like an owner." So I said, "What does that mean?" And they said, you are behaving like chairman. I said, "So what should I behave like? I mean, but do you logically disagree with what I say?" And they couldn't.
So one of the challenges of leadership is to get people to accept new ways of performing, setting new targets, making them more accountable.
Absolutely, and being open to new thoughts, new ideas, new innovations, new processes, new techniques. I mean, the world is changing and so fast.
One of those new ideas in the context of Indian cricket, which you had to bring in, was also, in a sense, that you will not accept mediocrity, that you will choose players on the basis of performance. You brought in new cricketers, new talents. Virender Sehwag is a good example of someone you spotted and you backed him to the hilt. Was that also a tough process for you?
I believe that you tend to pick what you see. And the past captains over a period pick players who they've seen around them. So what I wanted to do was go out and see everyone and decide who was good enough. I had a simple policy that I will not pick anyone on the basis of 1 or 2 performances and not drop anyone on the basis of a couple of poor performances, because over the period I've seen that it has happened. I had a pretty simple theory that I will pick someone who's performed over a period of time, and once he comes into the system, he should have enough leverage, enough mental freedom to express his skills.
That's interesting, because as a result you ended the insecurity which many players felt, that maybe they'll be dropped in the very next game if they didn't perform. And you brought in a lot of youngsters. I remember the Yuvraj Singhs, the Zahir Khans, the Mohammad Kaifs. A lot of them came in that period of time. And obviously getting in youngsters in a sort of settled Indian dressing room may not have been easy.
That was in some way happened automatically, because after the first 2 months of my captaincy, some of the players had to be left out because of whatever issues that happened. So there were spots up for open.
But you backed those young people.
Yes,
you backed a Harbhajan, you backed a Yuvraj.
As I said, because I felt that, firstly, I felt they were talented. And secondly, I felt that the talent has to be given room to express themselves. They cannot get into an Indian team with fear. And they should not worry about anything. They should not worry about the selector. They should not worry about what's the captain thinking about him. And the biggest thing they should not worry is the fear of failure. You cannot walk out to bat thinking, what happens if I fail? So I wanted to create that atmosphere and allow everyone to express.
When your CEOs came to you, probably people who had been nurtured in your father's era, and came to you and said, look, we can't work in this new environment. What was your response to them over a period of time? Did you have to take certain tough decisions in sort of maybe even asking some of them to go?
In fact, that's exactly what happened, because I gave them enough time to adapt. They did not. So I asked them to go. I wanted to give them enough time to actually measure up. And the only doubt I had is, what is that enough time? And whether it's 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. But at a point you had to say, listen, enough is enough.
Is that a challenge for traditional businesses in India to adjust to the new world? Has the transition been smooth?
The transition can be very smooth or it can be very difficult. It really depends upon how you lead and how you convince people of your vision, of your thoughts, of your... you have to motivate people, you have to give them that confidence that they can deliver. And it's very important to select the right team.
And also what has happened, just as Indian business has gone global, you've gone global in the last 20 years. Cricket has gone global. India wins overseas. I mean, one of the big challenges and one of your greatest contributions to Indian cricket is that you were able to win outside India. What did that take? What did it take for a leader to convince his team that, look, we can win in England, we can win in Australia?
Quality of players, the belief that we can do well overseas, and taking pressure head on. When we started in playing, I got my first test 100 in England at Lord's. We would see a green pitch, a seaming pitch. Invariably, we would win the toss and put the opposition in, and play on different sort of pitches. But that never won cricket matches. We would either draw cricket matches or lose cricket matches. And I wanted to change that. There have been instances where on green pitches I won the toss and batted, because I believe that don't leave the pressure till the 4th day or the 5th day where you're saving a test match.
Sure, Headingley 2002 is a good example.
Sydney, Perth. We won in Perth when Anil was captain. We batted on the first day of a Perth pitch. And
what was it? Self-belief? That's what changed. That you believed that the only way that you could win abroad was to convince the team that you could win.
Absolutely. And secondly, I felt that a lot of this talent was held back because of fear, and I realized that let's throw them at the deep end and let's see what happens. Invariably, we were not winning. We batted second. We were happy doing that. We were happy bowling on seaming pitches first, and then come back and bat on easier conditions, and it didn't result in wins. My point was simple, clear. Either you win or you lose. There's no draw for me.
Sanjiv, you could have also played safe and said, look, we've got our businesses which are doing well. We're not going to explore new areas. We're not going to go global. Was that an imperative for you to go global, to look for new businesses, BPO, other areas, or was it simply a new challenge in a sense that you had to take as a leader?
I think growth was a very strong imperative. And in the traditional lines that I've been in, for example, power, the options were getting limited. The whole environment was getting a little confused. And so we said we've got to grow in some other areas. And BPO is a new age kind of industry. It's people intensive. Managing people is our strength. And therefore we felt that let's look at this. It's global because the presence is international. Your customers are international. It's complementary to what we do. And I think so far it's worked.
But it's interesting because most people have thought that once you're born in Kolkata, you don't look global. Your world becomes Kolkata. Whether it's business, whether it's been cricket, as long as or football, as long as Bengal football was doing well, as long as Bengal cricket is doing well, you don't look to the rest of the world. Even many old age Calcutta businesses didn't look at the world. Has that changed, do you believe, fundamentally in the last 10, 20 years?
I think across the country, you have people, you have companies who imbibe, who grow with best practices across the world. And there are enough examples of people who are myopic and just look inward.
Sourav, do you believe that's been one of the breakthroughs? That until Sourav Ganguly came, there was a sense of insularity about Bengal, about its traditions, even in sport. You broke through that. Was that just the kind of person you are?
It was an attitude thing also, the way you look at things. I think attitude towards life is the best way to lead life. If your attitude is wrong, you will struggle. Whatever you are, you may be talented, you may be rich, but ultimately you will fall back.
That's why you kept Steve Waugh waiting for a toss once in a test match, right? Because you believed that this was the fire in the belly that you wanted to bring in. There was a message in that as a leader. The day you kept Steve Waugh waiting for the toss, you wanted to send a message to the Australians.
Yeah, we wanted to compete. We wanted to compete and beat them. And I realized that during that series that if we were fighting, we were a good team. Indians are basically laid back. If you leave them on their own and if you feel that everything is hunky-dory, invariably they'll take the easier option. So we had to fight to win that series. Otherwise, Australia would have beaten us 3-0. They were such a good team in that era. And the quality they had in that side, they just went past every team in the cricket world with these. They would win test matches in 3 days, 4 days. So the only way we had to compete was because you could see what Steve was trying to do. He came to India, he would write articles, he would try and show your team's weak. They will just run over us as they did to the rest of the world. And that attitude has been picked up by other teams during that era. I saw England in 2005 in the Ashes, which they won, and I was watching a game at Southampton, the first T20 game. and they beat Australia in that game, and I saw different aggressive England, and I was sitting at home with my wife and my family, and I said, listen, this is going to be a different series. It's not going to be a cakewalk, and invariably England finished as winners at the end of the 5th Test match.
So leadership is about making your teams much more competitive and willing to sort of take those risks, take those challenges. Let's take a break at this point. When we return, we'll come back with plenty more with Sanjiv Goenka and Sourav Ganguly. Back in a moment on Leader Talk. Welcome back to Leader Talk. We are talking to Sanjiv Goenka and Sourav Ganguly on their leadership mantras. Sanjiv, if I were to ask you for your success mantra, if you were to tell a young Indian who wants to be an entrepreneur what he needs to do to be a successful entrepreneur, what would be your success mantra?
First is self-assurance, not overconfidence. Second is the ability to motivate the team that works with you, that they have the ability to deliver. Actually guide them when they need the guidance, support them emotionally, mentally, directionally, should they need it. And most important is actually pick the right team. If you have the right people, you will get the results. If you have the wrong people, no matter what you do, you will not get the results.
That's almost similar to what you've been saying. I'm only going to add one more thing, which is aggression. And I will keep sort of in a sense referring to that, because when we identify your captaincy, aggression was a critical moment. I mentioned the toss with Steve Waugh. There's also that emotional gesture when you sort of removed your shirt on the Lord's balcony. Was that spontaneous, or was that to send out a message again?
No, that was spontaneous, and that was out of happiness. I would never do it again though.
But that was out of happiness. I'm just wondering whether the emotional Bengali in Sourav Ganguly...
Yeah, emotional because...
I mean, because one of the criticism, when you started off as captain, people worried Sourav gets extremely emotional. Even when you were bowling, you didn't get a wicket, you'd get emotional as a bowler, as a batsman. Did you over time have to change a bit?
I think it was involvement. It was more than being emotional, it was involvement and wanting to win. I know before that final at Lord's, we lost 4 finals. We did beat West Indies in the West Indies in that series, but we lost 4 finals, 3 nation finals. So I was a bit disappointed and upset. And I remember the day before, I had a massive argument with John. He's such a dear friend, and I said we were having nets and we were not winning, so we started a discussion and that finished with an argument. And I said, I don't talk to you, and he says, you don't talk to me. And then ultimately we finished, we won the game, and then we both had a great time after that. So we were all very upset that, getting to the final, losing, you were fed up. So when it came to that situation where we won from a situation where we lost the game completely, it was an emotion out of happiness.
I'm going to leave both of you with 15 seconds each. A legacy that a leader leaves. What would you like to leave as a legacy, you believe?
A company which excels in every aspect, every division that we operate in.
Excellence is the word that you've used. What would you like to believe has been your ultimate legacy to Indian cricket as captain?
I think excellence and trust. I think it's very important for players to trust the captain. That's when you start giving your best, because if you feel the captain's different in front and different in front of the selectors, the team will never play well.
Sourav Ganguly, Sanjiv Goenka, it's been a pleasure talking to you on Leader Talk. Thank you very much for joining us.